Hello everyone, and today let's learn how to replace your piano string on your grand piano when it breaks. Now, these will be for replacing only the steel strings. I won't go over replacing the coiled bottom, brass, copper, whatever the metal is on the bottom, the different colored strings, even if it's the same color. We won't be covering that, but this will apply to any of the upper strings that are not coiled. And the first thing that you're going to need in order to start to be able to replace it is a tool known as a caliper. And what this will do is this will allow you to measure your string so that you know which string to get. Which then the next thing you need, of course, is the string itself. You can order spools of these, and just once you've gotten the measurement, you tell them what size you'd like based on your measurement, and then they will send you this string. You'll need some clippers to clip the strings, wire cutters, a tuning hammer or tuning fork, whatever they're called, so that you can loosen the pins which tighten and release the strings. Optional but useful if you're tuning your own piano is a mute, 1-2 mutes, but one at least. Again, optional for this, not necessary to change a string. And again, very useful. Really tough to do this with your fingers unless you've got fingers of steel. Pliers, right? So get in there. I use 2 pliers regularly to do this job. I find that as one plier is holding something, the other plier is holding something else or just keeping something in place. So I use 2 pliers. And then finally, some protective safety, such as glasses and gloves. Again, totally optional. You do not need these to complete this job, but I just use them. Now, careful, even with gloves, unless they're Kevlar or some kind of steel piercing resistant material, the steel of the string will still go through these and give you a nice poke. So be careful on that. It's just an added protection, right? So let's get in there and let's change this string. All right, so the first thing you want to do is to check and see where the string broke. Usually, it's where the hammer is hitting it most of the time, so that makes it easy in this case. Now, you want to be careful not to ruffle up the dampers, which are really actually pretty fragile things. And of course, if you care about the finish on the metal part, what your piano looks like, then you also want to be careful for these sharp edges, not to scratch it. Always want to make sure you throw these parts away right away. You don't want these things poking you. And be aware that even with these gloves, it's not going to stop this steel from poking through and getting you. And just to make it easier on myself, I cut it here sometimes so I have less to feed through. You're going to want to make sure that you take these guys out a good distance. I usually go about, let's see, take your string and feed it through this first one. And I take it all the way up until there's just a little tip sticking out. I grab this and I start turning it. Making sure that it spirals down, you don't want to loop it in funny ways. And that's why we raised this pin so high, so that it could tighten back down once we got the string on there. Now, I get it pretty much full. I go for about almost a full 3 loops, since all the rest of my strings have about 3 loops. That's what I go for. And I go ahead and get this one right about full. Now there's actually a special tool that you can use just to loop that string around the pin, but when you're only changing one, or one at a time, and generally not doing it very often, you can just do it like this if you like. Because I believe to use that tool, you might need to take the pin out. I can't remember. Just start bending it to kind of how it's going to go. Feed it through this way. You don't really need to line these up yet, but sometimes I just start getting the string to feel its position. Alright, now with these, what you want to remember is the general rule seems to be that once you pull it through this second pin, what you do is you give it about a 4-finger distance and you cut it. So you leave about 4 fingers worth, and then you cut the rest. So 4 fingers from here, right? It's going to take me about there. So, right, just cut it about there. That leaves enough room to tie it up. then same thing, you leave a little bit poking out there. Just a little bit poking out, and then you start to tighten it again. Now, you'll get good at it how much you leave poking out, because if you don't leave enough, then it will kind of come back out on you. And once you started bending the wire, it's not very nice. So at the same time, if you leave it sticking out too far, then you go to tune it later if you got your fingers in there and you're not careful, you might poke yourself. So again, making sure that you're spiraling down. Now, at this time, as you start to tighten this one, as you're tightening it, you want to make sure you're observing what the string is doing, because you don't want to tighten it up and have it pull on something that it's not supposed to pull on, or be in a wrong position, but mostly just to not damage anything. Right? And continue to make sure that you've got that down spiral. As you can see, if you didn't get the spiral right, then you got to mess with the string, because you don't want it to be looped up weird. There we go. And at the same time, you want to make sure that as you're spiraling down, it's also not really separate, like one loop from the next. You want to make them pretty tight to each other. Which with this method, if you lose it, then it can kind of get difficult to get them up tight again. There we go. Now sometimes if you mess up along the way, then the only thing you can do is kind of loosen it and then begin tightening it again after you make your adjustments. You really just got to kind of play with it a little bit. Alright, and now that we've kind of got this, we can go back to this first one and start tightening up the first one even more. Again, because I let go of it, the spiral, because it's not perfectly tight yet, tends to go back down to the bottom. So you kind of want to, before you start tightening it, make sure that it's pushed up against where the string is going through the hole. Once you got it, let's see if you can grab it and hold it there. Make sure you got enough room for your tuning hammer to get back on. And oops, see that? Gotta make sure. This is where you gotta start really watching it. Now already, I can line this one up because it's tight enough that it's gonna hold. And you just look at how all the other ones are. do it the same. Let's see if this one will also be able to go already. There we go. Maybe they're already both set. And watch this part here. Make sure your spiral is still up high. A lot of moving parts. Kind of like playing the piano. You gotta pay attention to a bunch of things while at the same time tuning it. You gotta pay attention to a bunch of things at the same time. Alright, so now there's a couple other parts here. They're almost invisible to the eye, but there are these little notches on this part and even underneath this piece. There are these little notches that the strings like to fit up into. So you want to make sure that you're getting them, just use your eye and space them so that they look spaced even. And then make sure that they're also resting spaced evenly on this metal thing. I'm sure that metal thing has a name. Most likely the technical name for that is not metal thing. Just making sure tight before tightening. Looking up to make sure everything's lined up. And then these ones you want to go kind of slow and really be checking as you go. Make little adjustments. So you can see I need to line up that underneath one. See, it's not quite. I think I might need to loosen it a little bit. Line up. Oops, pulled the wrong one. There we go. That's looking good. Spirals are tight, not too close to the base. Everything's lined up properly, can keep going. Now at this point, if I let go, I won't need to worry about the spirals dropping anymore. So at this stage, you should already have your spirals up and nice and tight close to the hole where you first put in the string. And now you can just tighten based on sound. Still making sure though, double checking. And as you can see, because it looks like two strings, but now as you know, it's just one string looped around. As you tighten one, obviously the other one tightens a little bit as well. Just see if you can space these a little bit, but that's probably where they're going to be. And that's okay, because it looks like the rest of them. Let's see. Alright, that's the string that broke. So you can test to make sure that you got it right, because all the strings should sound. Now you have to be aware that these strings are going to go out of tune super duper quick as you play it. So you have a choice. You can can just keep tuning it regularly. Right? Or you can just let it go kind of really out of tune. It's up to you. I kind of just keep it, since I've got these tools right handy. Now they will get a little brighter. They're brand new strings and they haven't reached their full tightness yet. So they will get a little bit brighter to sound more like this one later. But you do want to check to make sure that you didn't get the height of the strings incorrectly. Otherwise, that might dampen them. Not in how you want them dampened. All right, and that's how we change a string. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something useful.